Singer, songwriter, activist, legend, John Lennon. Was he an INFP or an ENFP? This one's been heavily debated. Almost everyone seems to have him as one of these two types. These two types share the same functions, but in a different order. So how do we tell them apart? Well, there are some clues that you can pick up on in interviews, and I'm going to show you something you can hone in on that will help you tell the difference. In his book, Neuroscience of Personality, Dario Nardi writes how, through the use of EEG technology, he's noticed that INFPs often enter a sort of flow state where they engage every region of the neocortex, the thinking part of the brain, when they're listening. So they're possibly the best listeners of all the types. Notice how Roger Hodgson of Supertramp, an INFP, is completely still when he's being asked questions in this interview.
You had an anthology album that came out, Retrospectical?
Retrospectical, yeah.
32 tracks. How many tracks did you write on 32 tracks? The songs on Breakfast on America were written before you were in Supertramp.
Some of them were written, yeah. Breakfast in America, for example, was written before I even met Rick, I believe.
I'm going to give you like titles of songs, and you're going to tell me what it makes you think of. Maybe an anecdote, or maybe something that happened, or your kids, or, you know, a trip, something. Okay?
Now let's take a look at a couple more INFPs in interviews. Here's Johnny Depp and a singer-songwriter named Chris Pierce. Just take notice of their energy and how they listen and how they take the questions seriously.
In June, then how to prepare or to create such a character when we don't know the past, we don't know really the history of the character.
How? Good question. How? I don't know, you know, for me, Sam was a guy who had difficulty dealing with people on a normal, or on what is perceived as a normal level, and his way of dealing was to escape into the sort of the world of Buster Keaton, or the world of Chaplin. Probably one of those kids who had severe learning disability, who withdrew himself from society and kind of just made up his own rules, you know.
So I was very blessed to have parents that encouraged me to explore the music, you know.
I mean, well, because a lot of parents don't, I guess, at an early age. I mean, they think music is like an extracurricular thing where it's sort of, it's playtime. It's not a serious thing. But I was reading that when you were kind of really little, you would crawl around and like pick out vinyl and stuff, and your dad would play it. Is that true?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Mostly, from what I hear, mostly like Aretha Franklin.
Right. So you had good taste back then.
That's it. That's it. Really good taste. Yeah. My mom had a big crush on Paul McCartney, so there was always Beatles and Wings and stuff like that around, and so I'd pick out some of those. And so I had a lot of different kinds of influences, you know, especially coming from a very diverse background. You know, my folks listen to a lot of different kinds of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Now let's talk about ENFPs. ENFPs are not known for being especially good listeners unless they're listening to something that's really important to them. Even then, they might not be able to hold their attention for as long as most INFPs can. This has to do with the fact that by nature, they're very good at anticipating what people will say before they finish saying it. So they're far more likely to interrupt, to give quick answers, and to become distracted. Overall, they just have a faster motor. They can be very quick and witty, but they'll also tend to be much more fidgety and are far more likely to say goofy things and mess with their interviewers. Here are a few ENFPs in interviews for comparison.
Walked out. So here it is, the Rod Stewart interview from New York.
There was a track like You Keep Me Hanging On. This is just the list of the tracks. It's just the list of the tracks.
He's an amateur. He hasn't been at it very long. I've come from warm sheets to do this interview, you know that, don't you?
I realise that, yes, and you come up well after the party last night.
4 hours sleep.
Pardon, how many hours sleep?
4.
We went to bed at 7. It's now 5.
7. Well, it took me 5 hours to get ready.
I see.
Where are they from? German television. Can we talk to you quickly?
What do you want to talk to me about?
About soccer.
Oh, that's good.
So, soccer. You love soccer, don't you?
Yes, that's affirmative. Is that the question? You come all the way to Germany?
Yes, we want to talk soccer.
Okay.
What do you think? We're Germans. We love soccer too.
What do I think of what? You come all this way to ask me those two questions like that? Seriously?
Yeah.
Go on.
You think I'm crazy?
No, I just think you're not very good at your job. Come on.
What should I be asking you? You want me to ask
That's not
you?
my job, that's your job. Come on. Come on.
Okay, so the game today, you played twice. You haven't played in a while.
Yes. That's not a question, that's a statement. Come on, come on.
So man, you're going to school me here. That's cool, that's cool. So
What TV station is it?
Pro 7?
Oh, Pro 7?
Yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah, good. And then it's kind of amazing, you know, are you trying to hypnotize me? It might work, it might work. That's really...
Look in the eyes, not around the eyes. Okay, go on.
So, in Europe, you fill up huge...
I fill up huge what?
Really huge stadiums, and here you can just like walk on a soccer field in Santa Monica, and I'm just gonna faint in a minute, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Can you smell the cigarettes? Can you smell those?
I can. Yeah.
Got any mints?
I don't. No.
Go on.
You're really crazy.
Hi, Night Flight fans. We're talking with the one and only Ozzy Osbourne. Good evening, Ozzy.
What?
Good evening, Ozzy.
Hello there.
How are you?
Fine.
Ozzy, first of all, it has been rumored that you have bitten off the heads of doves, bats, dogs, everything. We want to set the record straight. What head did you really bite?
Well, in actual fact, if you want me to be funny, I bit my own head off.
Now here's John Lennon. Which camp do you think he fits into?
In fact, you are the first author from Liverpool I've ever seen.
Great.
But your first book sold in 350,000 copies and came out this year. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right. And tell me, you brought 3 of your friends. Could you please introduce
Yes, there's George Parasol, Ringo Stone, and Paul Machamley.
And did they have anything to do with your book? Did they help you or did they hinder you in any way?
No, they typed it out for me.
That's right. I mean, they can spell and you...
Oh, they spell very greatly.
That's nice. By the way, I read a review about it in Times Literary Supplement, and then I read the book. And then I wonder, are you influenced by Thurber or James Joyce?
None of them. James Stewart. No.
James Stewart.
James Stewart and Betty Grable.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, I'm quite sure that our Swedish viewers would like to hear you read one of your poems.
Right.
Good.
Which one are you? Eric.
It's not for me, it's for Paul. I'm doing
Eric, here is the American public.
I'm John.
You're John.
It's only a joke.
Yes, well, John, here is the American public. 40 million American viewers.
It only looks like one man to me.
Staring you right in the face.
Oh, it's the cameraman.
Thanks, Dusty. Now, our amateur disc jockey this week is John Lennon. But just before we talk about disc jockeying and records that you like, John, what about books?
What about them?
Well, you've just written one, haven't you?
Well, I just so happen to have. It's at 9 and 6, Keith, and it'll be out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, but tell us what's in it, then we might feel like buying it.
Rubbish.
Yeah, but what is it? Poetry, or prose, or what?
But it's a sort of words and things with drawings.
Well, when we said you'd just written it, have you in fact just done it? You did it a long time ago.
It's been a long time. Long time.
How long?
About 40 years or so, I think.
Come off it. How long ago did you write
It's a couple of years, you know. Some of it's old, some of it's new, something borrowed, something brown.
Is this the start of a big literary career for Lennon?
I'm hoping to go straight, yes, I
mean, you've heard of literary lions. We should have a literary Lennon in future.
I get it.
You with me?
This in a way.
But seriously, you like writing? Is this another form of expression for you?
No, I don't express nothing in the writing. I just do it for fun.
When you say fun, is it meant to be humorous?
It's a hobby.
What do you write? Do you like writing humorous stuff?
Yeah, well, it's meant to be funny.
Right,
It's
we'll
meant to
see
be
on
funny,
Tuesday
yes.
when it comes out, shall we?
9/6.
Now, choose a record for us.
Nice picture on the front. Oh, well. And now...
Sure seems like an ENFP to me. Overall, the two types tend to have a different cadence about them. INFPs will generally move and speak more slowly and have a noticeable stillness about them when someone they're in rapport with is speaking to them. ENFPs tend to move and speak at a faster pace and have more sporadic energy. There are times when INFPs can look like ENFPs and vice versa, so it's important to observe people in different contexts before coming to too firm of a conclusion. That being said, you can often tell between the two types fairly quickly in interviews with some practice.